episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another, and bring them on to tell a piece of their story in hopes that it inspires you to share some of yours. I'm thrilled this week to have my great friend Hal Bowman on with me today. Hal, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Wow, this week has changed a lot about who I am, but leading up to the coronavirus week is I've been an educator for a long time, man, over 30 years, and probably the last decade or so I have spent on the road doing my Teaching a Rockstar professional development events around the nation, my Be the One events for shifting school culture on school campuses. Prior to all that, as an educator, man, I've been in the classroom. I started as a band director, and I did that for a long time. And then I taught biology. I shouldn't say that. I was like sponsoring a biology class. I don't want to insult any biology teachers by calling what I was doing teaching. And then I taught some language arts and English and reading and some study skills programs, and finished up in the classroom doing PALS, which is a mentoring program, and a whole lot of teen leadership classes.
I love it. So how, growing up, did you know education was going to be in your path?
Dude, it was, well, listen, man, before moving to Texas, I grew up in New Jersey, and in New Jersey, it's not like you want to roam around the neighborhood telling people you want to be a teacher, that ain't exactly cool. So I kept it on the down low, man. I kept it, in the back of the closet, but yeah, for sure. Like, what it was is I had just these educators that had such an impact on my life. And you know what it was, man, like looking back, it wasn't what I wanted to do as much as who I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to be the one to be able to tell those stories and have that emotional impact on the lives of other people. Cause like, I wanted people to feel the way I felt because of those educators.
And then at some point you make that decision to start sharing your story and getting out there and speaking to other adults. When did that transition begin for you?
This is just so preposterous to think I even had the thought, man, because, I would be in my classroom struggling and in my car crying, but there was a part of me that thought, maybe there's something I can bring to educators, really what it is, just to affirm that they're doing the right thing and to provide them with some inspiration. And then as I would go around and see these amazing educators, and, it was collecting what they were doing and trying to figure out how to package it in such a way I can give that to other educators. And that really was the impetus for the whole thing.
Well, I love your work so much, Hal, and I've been a fan for a while. I wish I had the photo up that I could share with everybody. I'm going to see actually while I'm talking if I can find it, because I think I can find it real quickly. But, Hal, I knew you way back. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago, 7-8 years ago.
8 or 9.
My mom and I signed up to go. We got this pamphlet of Teach Like a Rock Star, and we were like, what is this? This looks kind of cool. It's different. We went, and I'll show everybody if we can. Yeah, there we go. The picture of Hal and my mom. And Hal's got this long hair.
It was glorious.
Long curly hair. And it's so funny because I'm like, that's the Hal I remember. And when we reconnected again in the last year or so recently, and I saw you, I was like, I don't remember him looking like that. And then I was like, I thought he had long hair. And then you were like, oh yeah, it's all gone now. Yeah. But it was just such a fantastic experience, where it was just what I love about the way you present, and it ties so much into the title of this podcast, is you are an excellent storyteller. And I think that's what people really resonate with, because I love with you, like, I'm laughing so hysterically that I'm crying. And then like 5 seconds later, I'm like bawling my eyes out, not laughing anymore, but now so emotionally touched. When did you realize just the impact you could have with stories?
Man, I think, some people call it storytelling. I just think it called teaching. Like, for me in the classroom, I, at some point, had this awareness that, like, our kids, and now even in what I do now, teachers, people don't really think they don't have a logical approach to their thought process. It's really just this emotional thing. So I wanted to figure out, how can I connect in such a way on an emotional level with people, so I can deliver the content. I can stuff the knowledge into the noggin when they're caught up in the emotion. And it's the same whether it was kids with teachers, even teachers and educators and principals and everybody I work with now. It's the same thing. No one wants to be told what to do. Here's how you do it. Step one, do that. Because kids are different and my approach is different than your approach, and everybody does it in a different way. So I want to present the information in such a way that it resonates with them. It sticks with them. They think about it for a long time. And their thought is like, how can I do that with my kid? And then they create their own way of doing it. And for me, it just seems way more effective.
I love that. Well, thinking back in your own experience with school, what was school like for you growing up?
Man, it just wasn't my thing. I couldn't get down with it. I was just a boy sitting in a classroom, in they're in fifth grade or whatever, and they're doing their thing, and I'm staring out the window thinking, how long would it take me to chop that tree down? I'm just having boy thoughts, and and sitting and I'm to look at the back of that kid's head for 3 hours now, and I'm thinking what damage I could do in that hair. It was just I just could not sit, and I don't know if they didn't call it, they didn't have a name for any of this stuff back then. But it just never made sense to me until, what it was, man. I had a few teachers along the way that, looking back, I know then I didn't get it, but they were using the content of their classroom as the vehicle to have an impact on who I was. So, in Mr. McNone's class, it wasn't really about social studies. That's what he called it. But what it really was about is creating these exceptional kids, high character kids that could think and be creative and be resourceful. And he just used social studies as the vehicle. I didn't get it then, man. I just love that dude.
Yeah.
But now I get it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love about some of the work that you do is you don't just work with adults. You also have these programs that you do with kids. And I love connecting with you and hearing the stories of ways that it's connected with junior high kids or high school kids and things like that. Do you bring in a lot of those personal examples when you work with them too? And what do you see really connects well with junior high and high school kids?
This is the craziest part, man. I wish I could have been the architect of all this thing, but it just kind of morphed into what it is. Man, I so wish I was smart and strategic, but man, I'm just trying a whole bunch of stuff. And then every once in a while, something really works. And what it is bringing in those stories and those anecdotes and all those real life examples of making a difference in the life of other people. And so when I'm on campus, as crazy as it sounds, what really draws those kids in, it's not the anti-bullying message. We never talk about any of that. What it is being what it takes and what it looks like and how to become the most influential person in the lives of others. Just like we do with teachers, I'm doing the same thing with kids and giving those kids that opportunity and some strategies and things that they're going to do on campus after I leave. And that's the contagious part, man. Like that's when kids really buy in and they feel, it's a few things. I'm getting fired up now. It's a few things. One, they feel connected to something bigger than themselves. They can feel that they have a purpose. They feel now they're driven to make a difference. And it's for a lot of those kids that aren't in youth group, aren't in band, aren't part of an athletic group, it's the first time that they have ever felt these kinds of feelings of being connected and making a difference in the lives of others.
Well, and speaking of making a difference in the lives of others, when you look back at your life and all the people that have played a part in growing the man you are today, who is somebody that's been really instrumental outside of course, immediate family?
Yeah. There is... I feel bad if I'm leaving somebody out, man.
I know. It's one of those questions like, pick your favorite child.
I know. In class, that's easy. I can pick my favorite one there. But, like this, looking back, man, I would have to say, I had a teacher early in my career as a student, in my educational career in third grade. Her name was Mrs. If, and she, you know what it was? She had such high expectations. It was one of those people, like the first person I really, really want to make proud.
Right.
Like I really, because she loved us so hard. And like what I mean by that, like she had these crazy high expectations,
Mhm.
and she would drag you up to them if she had to, whatever it took. She was super stern and strict on the in the outside, but man, she would give you the hug and look you right in the eye and tell you that she loved you. And what it was, man, it was that combination of the hard, gruff strictness, and along with the high expectations and just a deep sense of feeling loved by her.
Yeah.
Like I think that to this day, when I work with kids like that, I don't have the gruffness. I can't fake that. But man, I really want them to know how much they mean to me, and how much I love them, and how much I care about them.
Well, and that's always been one thing that I've been really impressed by you when I see your presentations, and I've got to see a couple of them now, is that just the genuineness that bleeds through, that I think that's why people connect so much with when you speak, because everybody in that room feels like you're speaking directly to them in that moment. And there's a few people in my life that I can think possess that gift, but I think that's something that's really a part of your arsenal that you use very well. And so when I'm thinking about all these things and all this stuff going on, obviously you're having this successful time, you're doing very well, but just like anybody's path, there isn't always success along every step. And so when you face those moments of failure, how have you been able to use some of them to help you grow?
You know what it is? I keep reminding myself, I look back at my life, and there's always this indirect relationship between the depth of the trough. Like life is a roller coaster, and there's waves and crests and troughs, and the valley. The depth of the valley is always equal to the peak. And so I guarantee it, man. I promise you, I've seen it how many times, that as hard as things are right now, as challenging it is, I know on the flip side, there is going to be an equal height of the crest of that wave that's going to be euphoric and amazing and exceptional. And in addition to that, man, is I use this time to give. Like so every day, just like you, man, I'm putting out stuff every day, doing a video every day, trying to connect people online every day, I'm finding stories out there, amazing stuff that's happening. And, teachers and schools and superintendents doing this phenomenal stuff for kids and pushing it out there, because it helps me emotionally, helps me psychologically. And this is the weird part. Like we have that, people always say you can't pour from an empty cup, or you can't give away that which you do not have. I don't know if that's true. Like, I'm not sure I think what it is, like the way I fill my cup is by pouring from the cup. The way I fill myself is by giving to, like when I'm constantly giving to others is when I feel most resourceful and blessed and positive.
I love that. I've been filming episodes every day this week of Tell Your Story. My wife goes, "You're doing another one?" And I said, "Yes, this is like my therapy. Like this is how I'm connecting with people and making those face-to-face conversations so that I'm not just stuck at home going crazy." But no, we're in this unpredictable, unexpected time of anxiety and concern and things like that. What advice would you have to educators who are listening today that might be overwhelmed, not knowing the next steps, and barely feel like, I talked about another episode recently. It's like we are all in our first day of teaching, in our first year of teaching all over again.
Sure. This is such a hard question, because everybody's dealing with different stuff. And I know there are families struggling where there's a teacher out there whose spouse just lost their job, and they're trying to deal with that income. And now they have 3 kids just sitting at the kitchen table, and they're trying to homeschool. And, all that being said, man, is what I try to focus, what I might recommend, just as a starting place, is focusing on like your immediate world, rather than looking at the exponential impact of the viruses across the global pandemic. That's a lot to digest, man.
Right.
But if we can have, what can I control right here in my world, and focus on that. And the other thing is finding somebody that you can help. Finding somebody that is, there's a young teacher that just moved here from Michigan to take a job, and they have no family, and now they're stuck here sitting in some apartment. So, call that person, help that person, give to that person. And I think if we focus on those 2 things, focus on my space, what I can control right now, being aware of the world for sure, but
Yeah.
really focus on what I can control right now and then giving to someone else. Those two things is what seem to help me.
Well, and I completely agree with that because I always tell people about the research out there about gratitude, and that when you show
Yeah.
gratitude to other people, it actually increases your mood more than the person you're showing gratitude to. And
Yeah.
so for me, when I get in those overwhelmed moments or filled with anxiety, it's like that's when I know, okay, I need to start pouring into somebody else. Like I need to text a friend that I haven't texted in a while. I need to FaceTime with somebody. I need to send a message. I need to write a note. I need to do something because when I start pouring into others, then it starts lifting my mood to know that it's not as overwhelming as it can sometimes feel.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a better job with the gratitude thing. Dude, you inspired me. In fact, I got it right here. I'm gonna reach over. Is I've got my brand new journal. I've got a few of them going, but this is specifically just for that topic. I've got like these messy brainstorm journals where I've got 1,000 really bad ideas in there,
Yeah.
hoping one falls out occasionally. But this is the one is specifically just for trying to create awareness in my own mind and bring it to the forefront of the things that are good and things that I appreciate and people I love.
I love that. Well, you know how when you look back on your life and think about all the things that you've been through, good, bad, celebratory, you want to forget, like all those things, when you're reflecting on that path, what is something that really sticks out that you feel like was really instrumental in creating the man we see today?
I don't know. I haven't thought about this in a long time, man. But when I was a first year teacher, I guess maybe it was my second year. I started in spring and then the fall, and I was a band director. So I'm like 22, 23 at the time. I was in a really small school. And for the first time ever in this little tiny town, as a band director, we qualified for a regional marching contest, which is a big deal for the marching bands. And I have everybody in school. It's a 1A school. We probably had 90 kids in the high school. I think I had like 70 something in band. Everybody's in band. I mean, they couldn't all play, but I just put them in there. So I said, pinpoint the instrument that way. Don't make a sound, just march and do anything. So, it was great. And then grades came out and lots of kids failed. Maybe, and so we had, it was a real challenge. There's no way we could go on to regional marching contest. And I just said, okay, well, that's that, I guess we can't go. And then Peggy Swartz, she's the volleyball coach. She comes storming into the band hall, screaming at me in front of the kids. What are you? Some of these kids have never even been out of the county, and you're canceling a trip to Austin. Are you? And you're going. She tells all the kids, you be on that practice field after school. We'll figure it out. And she shows up with her volleyball team. She had 8th grade kids from the junior high she recruited that are going to be in band. Put a uniform on them, hand them an instrument, and teach them the drill. And like she single-handedly like brought this whole thing back together and inspired. And that's when I kind of realized it's one of those things I realized what this teaching moment was about. This teaching gig, it wasn't about going to contests and getting a trophy. It was providing these memorable experiences for these kids.
Right.
That I guarantee they're still talking about the day she walked into the band hall and screamed at me, and we were on the field at it's 9:30 at night, and kids in shorts and their cowboy boots, and and trying to figure this thing so we can get on the bus and go to Austin the next day. Powerful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, how the one question I always love to end all these conversations on is when you think about all the people listening today, what is one thing you wish more people knew or understood?
Man, the for educators specifically, the one thing that I really hope we can be reminded of regularly is the typical teacher had an okay childhood. And a typical teacher did pretty good in school. And not always, but the vast majority of teachers were successful academically, and they played, they were sports or in the band or in the choir, did the yearbook or something. But most kids sitting in the classroom isn't that kid, and everything at home isn't okay, and they don't feel connected. And it's just a different reality. And what I really hope is we can kind of somehow experience the reality of those kids. We can better understand them, and therefore we can, love them relentlessly and give them opportunities to be great regularly. So we can be the one that the kid thinks about and talks about someday when they're online having a conversation with you. when when they're a teacher and you're old and gray and angry and yelling at people on the internet.
Well, Hal, I admire your work so much, and I love your heart and your passion and just your creativity. And so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of that brilliance with my listeners today on Tell Your Story.
Thanks, brother, man. Thank you so much for all you do. I really, really appreciate your work and the lives you've shifted because of your books and your work on stage. I'm a huge fan, and thank you for all you do.
Well, and thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. It's there. I hope today's conversation with Hal has inspired you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.